Welcome back to Cloud Academy. If you're just getting started with AWS or looking to explore the platform for the first time, you're in the right place. In today's video, we'll walk you through creating your AWS account, configuring secure users, and setting up the AWS CLI with profiles. This tutorial is divided into the following short modules. You must complete each module before moving to the next one. Create your AWS account. Configure users. Set up the AWS CLI. Start Module 1. In this module, you will sign up for an AWS account. Validate your contact details through a phone call or SMS. An AWS account is the starting point to allow provisioning infrastructure. In this module, we cover how to set up your account. To create a new AWS account, go to aws.amazon.com and choose Create an AWS account. Enter an email address and an account name. Carefully consider which email address you want to use. If you are setting up for a personal account, we don't recommend using a work email address because you may change jobs at some point. Conversely, for business accounts, we recommend using an email alias that can be managed because the person setting up the account may, at some point, change roles or companies. Select Verify Email Address. You will get a verification code in your email. Enter the verification code and choose Verify. You will be redirected to a new screen where you will create your root user password. Once you have entered and confirmed your password, choose Continue. Now you need to add your contact information and select how you plan to use AWS. Choose between a business or personal account. There is no difference in account type or functionality, but there is a difference in the type of information required to open the account for billing purposes. For a business account, choose a phone number that is tied to the business and can be reached if the person setting up the account is not available. Once you have selected the account type, fill out the contact information about the account. Save these details in a safe place. If you ever lose access to the email or your two-factor authentication device, AWS support can use these details to confirm your identity. At the end of this form, please read through the terms of the AWS customer agreement and select the checkbox to accept them. Choose Continue. Add payment details. In the following screen, add your preferred credit or debit card to use for payment. Enter your billing information details. A small hold will be placed on the card, so the address must match what your financial institution has on file for you or your business. Select Verify and Continue. Now you need to verify your account. Choose how you want to confirm your identity. You can verify your account either through a text message, SMS, or a voice call on the number you are associating with this account. Enter the code as appropriate for your verification choice, then choose Continue to proceed to the final step. Choose a support plan for your AWS account. Choose a support plan. For this tutorial, we recommend the default selection. To finish creating your account, choose Complete Sign Up. Congratulations! Your account is now set up and being activated. When activation is complete, you will receive an email from AWS. Use the credentials you created in this module to log into your root account. In the next module, you will learn how to secure your root account and set up additional users. In this module, you will learn best practices for securing your AWS account. When you create an AWS account, a root user is created automatically for your account. The root user is a special entity that has full access to the account and can perform all actions, including changing the payment methods or closing the account. When you sign in using the root user, you have complete access to all AWS service and resources in the account. Due to this level of permissions, we recommend that you enable additional security for the root user with multi-factor authentication. Set up additional users to perform daily tasks related to your account. AWS has two identity services: AWS Identity and Access Management IAM. This service provides access control policies and manages long-term users like the root user. If you create users in IAM, those users have long-term access credentials. As a security best practice, it is recommended that you minimize the use of long-term credentials in AWS. In this tutorial, you will not create an IAM user, AWS IAM Identity Center. This service provides temporary credentials that are granted each time a user signs in for a session. It can integrate with any existing identity providers you might already have, like Microsoft Active Directory or Okta, so that your users can use the same sign-on for AWS as they use for other services in your organization. If you don't have another identity provider, you can create users in IAM Identity Center. The AWS account root user is accessed by signing in with the email address and password that you used to create the account. 1. Sign into the AWS Management Console. 2. Select root user and enter the email address you specified when you created your account and then choose Next. 3. You might be prompted to complete a security check. Type the characters from the image in the space provided and then choose Submit. 4. On the sign-in page, enter your password and choose Sign In. Congratulations! You have just signed into the AWS Management Console as your root user. But you don't want to use your root user for everyday tasks. The root user should only be used for specific account management tasks, 2 of which we are going to do in the next part of this tutorial. To help keep your root user credentials secure, we strongly recommend that you enable multi-factor authentication for your root user sign-in. When you enable MFA, in addition to providing the email address and password for the root user, you will also provide credentials from another authenticator, making it much more difficult for someone to use your root user credentials without your permission. To add more security to the root user sign-in, you will use the AWS Identity and Access Management Service. It is considered a security best practice to not use your root account for everyday tasks, but right now you only have a root user. In this tutorial, we will use IAM Identity Center to create an administrative user. We are using IAM Identity Center because it provides users with unique credentials for every session, also known as temporary credentials. Providing users these credentials results in enhanced security for your AWS account because they are generated each time the user signs in. Once you have an administrative user, you can sign in with that user to create additional Identity Center users and assign them to groups with permissions to perform specific job functions. Another benefit to creating users in IAM Identity Center is that the users are automatically granted access to the AWS Billing and Cost Management Console. Your identity source is where your users and groups are managed. After you configure your identity source, you can look up users or groups to grant them single sign-on access to AWS accounts, cloud applications, or both. When you enable IAM Identity Center for the first time, it is automatically configured with an IAM Identity Center directory as your default identity source. Add users to groups. User groups let you specify permissions for multiple users, which can make it easier to manage the permissions for those users. Manage access to your account. Your new user exists but does not have access to any resources, services, or applications, so the user can't replace your root user for daily administrative tasks yet. Let's give your new user access to your AWS account. Since we put the user into a group, we will assign the group to an account, and then we will add a permission set that defines what the members of the group can access. Congratulations! Your user can now sign into your AWS Access portal and access resources in your AWS account. Now you are ready to sign in using your new administrative user. If you tried to sign in previously, you would have only been able to establish your password and enable up multi-factor authentication, MFA, for your user, because no other permissions had been granted to the user. Now, the user will have full permissions to your AWS resources, but they will still need to configure a password and set up MFA. Congratulations! You have now completed the sign-in process, created an administrative user in IAM Identity Center, added enhanced security for both your root user and your administrative user, and are ready to start working with AWS services and applications. Remember, when you sign in using your Identity Center administrative user, you will use the Access portal URL you received in your invitation email. The AWS CLI is a unified tool to manage your AWS services. With just one tool to download and configure, you can control multiple AWS services from the command line and automate them through scripts. To interact with AWS using the CLI, you need to configure credentials for it to use when making API calls. In this module, you will also learn how you can set up multiple profiles to access more than one AWS account, either with additional credentials or through IAM role switching. Install the AWS CLI. There are different ways to install the AWS CLI, depending on your operating system or preference to use containers. Configure AWS CI credentials. To configure the credentials, you will need to include the credentials of the user you created in Module 2 of this tutorial. Congratulations! You've now successfully created your AWS account, configured IAM users for secure access, and set up the AWS CLI with profiles. You're all set to start exploring and managing your AWS environment efficiently. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Cloud Academy for more in-depth tutorials and cloud computing topics. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.